The auctioneer's gavel cracked against the podium like a death knell. Marin Caldwell stood at the back of the crowded hall, her heart slamming against her ribs, watching the destruction of a man she had spent 7 years pretending to hate. Blackmore Estate, the lands, the London townhouse, the horses, the art. Everything that belonged to Hadrian Vane, Duke of Blackmore, laid out like carrion for the circling vultures of London's moneyed class. She should not have come. Corvin had begged her to stay home, said it would only cause her pain to watch, but she could not stay away. Some terrible compulsion had dragged her here, to this overheated auction house that smelled of greed and old wood and the particular desperation of ruined men. Hadrian stood near the front, spine rigid, jaw carved from marble. He wore black, as if attending his own funeral. Perhaps he was. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, the only crack in his composure. And even from across the room, Marin could see the tension coiled in his shoulders like a wound spring. He did not look at the crowd, did not acknowledge the whispers, the pitying glances, and the barely concealed satisfaction of rivals who had waited years for this moment. He simply stood there, proud and silent, and let them tear his legacy apart piece by piece. Marin's gloved hands clenched at her sides. She had known him since she was 18, when Corvin had brought him home from university for Christmas. He had been 23 then, already bearing the weight of his dying father's expectations, already learning to hide whatever softness existed behind walls of ice and duty. He had looked at her exactly once during that visit. She had been laughing at something, probably too loudly, and he had glanced over with those storm-gray eyes and said, "Your sister is rather exuberant, Caldwell." Exuberant, as if she were an unruly puppy. She had hated him immediately. In the 7 years since, nothing had changed. He visited Corvin regularly. He attended the same balls, the same dinners, moved through the same circles. And every single time, he treated her like an inconvenient piece of furniture, something to be endured, something to be politely ignored while he discussed politics and horses and whatever else men found more interesting than conversation with a woman who had opinions. She had stopped trying to impress him by the time she was 20, stopped hoping he might notice her by 22. By 25, she had convinced herself she felt nothing but irritation when he entered a room, that the flutter in her chest was anger, not longing, not the desperate wish that just once he might look at her and truly see her. And now, here he was, destroyed, and she could not breathe for the pain of it. "The final lot," the auctioneer announced, his voice carrying over the murmurs. Blackmore House itself, the ancestral seat of the Vane family for 9 generations. "We shall begin the bidding at £40,000. 40,000. A fortune. More than most families saw in a lifetime. Lord Aldrich Pemberton raised his hand. 40,000. Marin's stomach turned. Pemberton. She knew him, knew his reputation. A distant cousin of Hadrian's, who had spent years circling like a carrion bird, waiting for exactly this moment. Rumor said he had engineered it, that the steward who had embezzled Hadrian's fortune had been in Pemberton's pocket all along. But rumor was not proof, and now Pemberton would own everything. 45,000, another voice called. 50, Pemberton countered, smooth and satisfied. Hadrian had not moved, had not flinched, but Marin saw his hands, clasped behind his back, and she saw the white of his knuckles, the tremor he could not quite suppress. 55,000. 60. The bidding climbed. Pemberton matched each offer with lazy confidence. He knew he would win. Everyone knew. He had the deepest pockets in the room, and he wanted this too badly to stop. 75,000, Pemberton said. Going once, going twice. Marin's feet moved before her mind caught up. 100,000 pounds. The room went silent. Every head turned. Maren stood in the aisle, heart hammering, and voice somehow steady despite the earthquake inside her chest. Hadrian's head snapped toward her, those gray eyes, always so cold, so distant, now blazed with something she could not name. "Miss Caldwell," the auctioneer stammered, "I was not aware you were bidding today." "I am now." Her voice did not waver. £100,000 for Blackmore House and all associated debts. I will clear the Duke's accounts in full. Whispers erupted like wildfire. She heard her name hissed from a dozen directions, heard the scandal already taking shape. An unmarried woman, purchasing a Duke's debts. Publicly, without shame. Pemberton's face twisted with fury. This is highly irregular. A woman cannot simply— "A woman with £100,000 can do whatever she pleases," Maren said coolly. "Unless you wish to counter my bid." He opened his mouth, closed it. His eyes darted to Hadrian, then back to her, calculating. 100,000 going once, the auctioneer said, clearly unsure how to proceed. Going twice. 110, Pemberton snarled. 150. The gasps were audible now. Maren felt dizzy, untethered, as if she were watching herself from very far away. This was madness. This was everything she had. Her grandmother's inheritance, her independence, her future. She was giving it all to a man who had never even bothered to learn her favorite color. Pemberton's face had gone purple. He stared at her with naked hatred, then at Hadrian, then back. Finally, with a sound of disgust, he turned and pushed through the crowd toward the door. £150,000, the auctioneer said into the ringing silence. Sold to Miss Maren Caldwell. The gavel fell, and Hadrian Vane moved. He crossed the room in 5 strides, the crowd parting before him like water. Maren's breath caught as he stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the storm in his eyes, the muscle jumping near his temple, the barely leashed fury radiating from every line of his body. "What?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Do you think you were doing?" "Saving you, apparently. I did not ask to be saved." "No. You were too proud to ask anyone for anything. So I did it anyway." His eyes burned into hers. The silence stretched, brittle as spun glass. Then he turned to face the room, to face the hundreds of witnesses who would carry this story to every drawing room and gentlemen's club in London by nightfall. "It seems," he said, his voice cutting through the whispers like a blade, "that there has been some confusion about the nature of Miss Caldwell's involvement in my affairs." He reached down and took her hand. His grip was firm, warm, utterly unexpected. Maren's heart stopped. "Miss Caldwell is my fiancée. Her actions today were simply a matter of family protecting family. There is no scandal here. No irregularity." His eyes swept the crowd with cold authority. "Merely a bride, ensuring her future husband's estate remains intact." The whispers shifted, recalibrated, began to reshape themselves into something more acceptable. Maren could not move, could not speak, could barely think past the roaring in her ears. Hadrian looked down at her, and something passed through those gray depths, something that might have been gratitude or fury or both. "She is mine," he said softly, for her ears alone. "And God help us both for it." The carriage ride from the auction house was suffocating. Maren sat rigidly on the velvet seat, staring out the window at the gray London streets, acutely aware of Hadrian's presence across from her. He had not spoken since handing her into the carriage, had not looked at her. The silence between them was thick enough to choke on. "You had no right," he said finally, his voice flat and cold. "You were about to lose everything." "That was my concern, not yours." She turned to face him, anger flaring hot beneath her breastbone. Your concern. You were going to let Pemberton take Blackmore. Let him destroy 9 generations of your family's legacy out of spite. And for what? Pride? For honor. Honor, she laughed, sharp and brittle. How honorable would it have been to watch your tenants turned out, your servants dismissed, your mother's portrait sold to some merchant who would hang it in his study as a curiosity? A shadow crossed his face. You know nothing about it. I know Pemberton engineered your downfall. I know your steward was in his pocket for years, siphoning funds, falsifying accounts. I know you trusted the wrong person, and Pemberton used that trust to destroy you. Hadrian's eyes snapped to hers. How do you know that? Because Corvin told me. Because unlike you, your best friend actually speaks to me like I am a human being with a functioning mind. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. Corvin should not have involved you. Corvin did not involve me. I involved myself. She leaned forward, hands clenched in her lap. I made a choice. My money. My decision. And I will not apologize for it. Your money. His laugh was hollow. You have no idea what you have done, do you? You have just purchased a duke's debts. Publicly. Without a chaperone. Without any pretense of propriety. By tomorrow morning, every gossip in London will be speculating about exactly what you hope to gain. I hope to gain nothing. Then you are a fool. The words hit like a slap. Marin sat back, throat tight, refusing to let him see how much it hurt. Perhaps I am, she said in a low voice, but at least I am a fool who acts, rather than a proud man who would rather drown than accept a hand. Silence stretched between them, brittle and dangerous. The engagement, she said finally. You announced it without consulting me. Would you have preferred I let the scandal destroy you? I would have preferred you ask. There was no time. He ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his composure. Pemberton would have twisted this into something sordid. An unmarried woman paying a bachelor's debts. The implications alone would have ruined you. So instead, you claimed me like property. I claimed you like a fiancé, which is considerably better than the alternative. And what happens now? She forced her voice to remain steady. We are not actually engaged. We do not even like each other. His eyes met hers, gray and unreadable. Now we maintain the fiction until the scandal dies. A few weeks, perhaps a month. We will be seen together at appropriate functions. We will behave as a courting couple. And when sufficient time has passed, we will quietly end the engagement by mutual agreement. Just like that. Just like that. She studied him, trying to read something, anything, beneath the ice. And if I refuse? Then you will be ruined, and I will be forced to watch. His voice hardened. Is that what you want? To throw away your reputation out of spite? It is not spite. It is what? She did not know how to finish, did not know how to explain the tangle of emotions knotting her chest, anger, resentment, and underneath it all, a terrifying awareness that she had just bound herself to a man who had spent 7 years making her feel invisible. Where will we conduct this fiction? She asked instead. Blackmore. His eyes moved toward the window. The London house is too public, too many eyes. At the estate, we can control the narrative. A newly engaged couple retreating to the country to escape the pressures of the season. Romantic. Understandable. Above suspicion. And my family? Corvin will understand. I will speak with him myself. He paused. Your father may require more convincing. My father will require proof that you intend to behave honorably. I always behave honorably, Miss Caldwell. Do you? She held his gaze. Because from where I sit, you have spent 7 years behaving as though I did not exist. And now, suddenly, I am your fiancé. A crack appeared in his composure. The circumstances were different. Were they? He did not answer. The carriage jolted over a rough patch of cobblestone, and Maren braced herself against the seat, suddenly exhausted. She had just spent £150,000. She had just agreed to a false engagement with a man who could barely tolerate her presence. And tomorrow, she would travel to his estate and pretend to be in love with him for the benefit of servants and neighbors and whoever else might be watching. This was madness, complete and utter madness. "I will require my own chambers," she said firmly. "Separate from yours. With a lock. Naturally. And I will write to my mother myself. I will not have you controlling the narrative with my family. As you wish. And you will treat me with respect, in public and in private. I am not your property, regardless of what you announced at that auction." His mouth pressed into a line. For a moment, she thought he might argue. Then, softly, "You saved my life today. The least I can do is treat you with basic decency." It was not an apology. Not quite. But it was something. "Then we are agreed," she said. "We are agreed." The carriage rolled on through the gray afternoon, carrying them toward a future neither of them had chosen. And somewhere beneath her anger, beneath her exhaustion, beneath all the complicated feelings she refused to name, Maren Caldwell wondered what it would be like to pretend to love a man she had spent 7 years trying to forget. She suspected she was about to find out. Blackmore was beautiful in a haunted sort of way. The estate rose from the mist like something out of a Gothic novel, all gray stone and climbing ivy, and windows that watched like eyes. Maren stood in the entrance hall, surrounded by her hastily packed trunks, and tried not to feel like a prisoner being escorted to her cell. Miss Caldwell. The housekeeper, a severe woman named Mrs. Thornberry, curtsied stiffly. "We are honored to welcome you to Blackmore. His Grace has asked that you be given the ivory suite." "The ivory suite is in the family wing," Hadrian said from behind her. His voice was carefully neutral. "It seemed appropriate, given our engagement." Maren did not miss the way Mrs. Thornberry's eyes moved between them, assessing, judging. She had no doubt the entire staff had heard about the auction, about the scandal, about the mysterious fiancé who had appeared from nowhere to save their master. "How thoughtful," Maren said sweetly, "though I do hope the suite has a sturdy lock. I am a light sleeper." Tension gathered in Hadrian's shoulders. "The lock is quite adequate, I assure you." Mrs. Thornberry led her through corridors lined with portraits of dead Vanes, each one staring down with the same gray eyes as the current Duke. The family resemblance was unsettling. It felt like walking through a gallery of Hadrians, each one judging her more harshly than the last. The ivory suite was surprisingly warm. A fire crackled in the hearth, and someone had placed fresh flowers on the writing desk. The bed was enormous, canopied in cream silk, and the windows overlooked a wild garden that seemed to be fighting a losing battle against winter. "Dinner is at 8, Mrs. Thornberry said. "His Grace dresses for dinner, even when there are no guests." "Of course he does," Maren muttered. The housekeeper's lips thinned almost imperceptibly. "Will there be anything else, miss?" "No. Thank you." The door closed with a decisive click. Maren sank onto the edge of the bed and pressed her hands to her face, finally allowing herself to tremble. What had she done? 3 days ago, she had been Maren Caldwell, spinster daughter of a successful merchant, possessed of a comfortable fortune and a complete lack of marital prospects. She had been content with her books, her charity work, and her small rebellions against the suffocating expectations of society. She had been free. Now she was trapped in a Gothic mansion with a man who looked at her like she was an equation he could not solve, pretending to be engaged, while half of London whispered about what she must have done to secure a duke. A knock startled her upright. Yes? Miss Caldwell? A young maid peered around the door, her face round and nervous. I am Betsy. Mrs. Thornberry assigned me to attend you during your stay. Shall I unpack your things? Yes. Please. Marin watched the girl work, her movements quick and efficient, and tried to compose herself. She had survived worse than this. She had survived her debut season, when every eligible bachelor had looked through her to find someone prettier, richer, and more amenable. She had survived 7 years of Hadrian Vane treating her like wallpaper. She could survive a few weeks of pretending. Betsy, she said carefully, what do the servants know about my arrival? The girl's hand stilled on a folded chemise. Only what His Grace told us, miss, that you are his intended, that the wedding will be announced soon. A pause, and that we are to treat you with every courtesy. Nothing else? Betsy's cheeks flushed. There was some talk, miss, about the auction. But Mrs. Thornberry put a stop to it quick. Said anyone caught gossiping would be dismissed without references. Marin absorbed this. So Hadrian was already protecting the fiction, already controlling the narrative among his own staff. She was not sure if she should be grateful or unsettled. Thank you, Betsy. That will be all for now. Dinner was a study in awkwardness. The dining room was cavernous, designed for parties of 30, and Marin and Hadrian sat at opposite ends of a table that could have seated a small army. Candles flickered in silver holders, casting shadows that made it impossible to read his expression. The lamb is excellent, she said, because someone had to say something. The cook will be pleased to hear it. Silence, the clink of silverware against porcelain, the distant pop of the fire. How long have you lived here alone? She asked. Since my father's death. 4 years. That must be lonely. His eyes lifted to hers. Unreadable. I have the staff, and Corvin visits regularly. Corvin is not company. Corvin is family. Is there a difference? There is to most people. He set down his fork, something shifting in his expression. You speak as though loneliness is foreign to you, Miss Caldwell, but I have watched you at balls and dinners for 7 years. You are always surrounded by people, yet you always seem alone. The observation landed like a blade between her ribs. She had not expected him to notice, had not thought he ever truly looked at her at all. Perhaps we are more alike than you think, she said in a low voice. Perhaps. His gaze held hers for a long moment. Or perhaps you simply see what you wish to see. She did not know how to respond to that, did not know how to navigate this strange new terrain where Hadrian Vane spoke to her like an actual person rather than an inconvenient obstacle. After dinner, he walked her to her chambers. The corridor was dark, lit only by the candle he carried, and their shadows stretched and twisted on the walls like living things. I have written to Corvin, he said as they reached her door. He will arrive in 3 days to assess the situation. And until then, we maintain appearances. The local gentry will expect to meet my fiancé. There will be calls to pay, invitations to accept. You want me to perform for your neighbors? I want us both to survive this with our reputations intact. He paused, and his voice dropped. I know this is not what you wanted, Miss Caldwell. I know you acted out of kindness, not calculation. But we are bound together now, and the only way out is through. She studied his face in the flickering candlelight, the sharp jaw, the tired eyes, the faint lines around his mouth that she had never noticed before. He looked exhausted, not just physically, but somewhere deeper, in a place where exhaustion could not be cured by sleep. Why did Pemberton want to destroy you? She asked softly. What did you do to earn such hatred? His expression shuddered. That is not your concern. I just spent my entire fortune saving you. I think I have earned the right to know why. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, his words barely above a whisper. My father promised him something. Something he could not deliver. Pemberton has been waiting 20 years for revenge. What did your father promise? But Hadrian was already stepping back, his face closing like a door. Good night, Miss Caldwell. I will see you at breakfast. He turned and walked away, taking the light with him, leaving her alone in the darkness with more questions than answers. Maren stood there for a long time, listening to the silence of the old house, feeling the weight of its secrets pressing down on her like stones. She had come here to save him, but she was beginning to suspect that Hadrian Vane needed saving from far more than debt, and she was beginning to wonder if she was brave enough to try. The first week at Blackmore passed in a strange haze of awkward meals and careful distances. Maren learned the rhythms of the house, the creaking stairs, the drafty corridors, the way the light shifted through the tall windows as the day progressed. She learned which servants watched her with curiosity and which watched with suspicion. She learned that Hadrian took his breakfast early, rode out to inspect the tenant farms by 9, and disappeared into his study for hours at a time, emerging only when duty demanded. She learned that he was, despite everything, a good landlord. The tenants spoke of him with genuine respect. The servants, once their initial wariness faded, revealed small loyalties, small kindnesses he had shown over the years. A footman whose mother's medical bills he had quietly paid. A kitchen maid whose brother he had helped secure an apprenticeship. A stable hand who spoke reverently of the Duke's patience with the horses. It did not match the cold, dismissive man she thought she knew, and that contradiction unsettled her more than she wanted to admit. On the 8th day, Corvin arrived. Maren heard the carriage from her window and was downstairs before the footman could announce him. Her brother swept into the entrance hall like a force of nature, all golden hair and easy charm and barely contained fury. What in God's name were you thinking? He demanded, pulling her into a crushing embrace. £150,000 at a public auction, without telling anyone? I was thinking that your best friend was about to lose everything. She pulled back to meet his eyes. I was thinking that someone needed to act, while everyone else stood by and watched. Someone. Corvin's face hardened. You mean me. I mean anyone. But no one did. So I did. He stared at her for a long moment, something complicated moving behind his eyes. Then he exhaled, running a hand through his hair, in a gesture so like Hadrian's that it made her chest ache. You are the most impossible woman I have ever known, he said softly, and I love you for it, even when you terrify me. Caldwell. Hadrian's voice came from the top of the stairs. He descended slowly, his expression unreadable. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? Corvin turned to face him. My sister has apparently purchased your entire existence. I thought I should come see what she bought. A shadow passed through Hadrian's expression. Guilt, perhaps. Or shame. We should speak privately. Yes, we should. They disappeared into the study, and Maren was left standing in the entrance hall, feeling oddly bereft. She had saved Hadrian. She was pretending to be his fiancée. And still, somehow, she was on the outside looking in. The afternoon stretched. Maren walked the gardens, wrapped in her heaviest cloak against the autumn chill. The grounds were beautiful in their decay, all overgrown roses and tangled pathways, and statuary half claimed by moss. She found a stone bench beneath a skeletal oak and sat there, watching the clouds scud across the gray sky, trying not to think about what Corvin and Hadrian were discussing. The sound of hoofbeats interrupted her solitude. She looked up to see a carriage approaching the house, a sleek black vehicle pulled by matched grays. It was not a local conveyance. The crest on the door was unfamiliar, a rampant lion above crossed swords. Maren rose, curiosity overcoming caution, and made her way back toward the house. By the time she reached the entrance, the carriage had stopped, and its occupants were descending. Lord Aldrich Pemberton stepped onto the gravel drive, his smile sharp as a knife, and beside him, her hand resting delicately on his arm, stood the most beautiful woman Maren had ever seen. She was tall and willowy, with hair the color of winter moonlight and eyes like pale sapphires. Her traveling dress was immaculate, her posture perfect, her expression serene and utterly unreadable. She looked like a porcelain doll brought to life, exquisite and cold, and impossibly elegant. "Ah, Miss Caldwell," Pemberton's voice dripped with false warmth. "How delightful to find you here. I had heard rumors of your arrangement with His Grace, but I confess I did not quite believe them." Maren forced her spine straight. "Lord Pemberton, I was not aware you were expected. I am not. But some matters are too urgent to await invitation." His smile widened, predatory. "Allow me to introduce my cousin, Lady Seren Ashworth. She has traveled a very long way to see the Duke." Lady Seren dipped into a graceful curtsy, her eyes sweeping over Maren with cool assessment. "Miss Caldwell, I have heard so much about you." There was something in her tone, something sharp beneath the silk, that made Maren's skin prickle with warning. "Have you?" Maren kept her voice pleasant. "I cannot imagine what." "Oh, everyone is talking about the woman who purchased a duke at auction." Lady Seren's smile did not reach her eyes. "It is quite the romantic tale. Though I confess, some of us were rather surprised. Hadrian has always been so particular about propriety." Hadrian. Not the Duke or His Grace. The familiarity was deliberate, pointed, a claim staked in the language of intimacy. "Lady Seren and His Grace have a long history," Pemberton said, watching Maren's face with evident pleasure. "Surely he mentioned her." He had not. Of course he had not. Hadrian Vane did not share anything he was not forced to share. "I am certain His Grace will be delighted to see an old friend," Maren said carefully. "If you will excuse me, I will inform him of your arrival." She did not wait for a response. She turned and walked into the house, her heart pounding against her ribs, her mind racing with questions she did not want to ask. Who was Lady Seren Ashworth? What was her history with Hadrian? And why did Pemberton look so satisfied, so certain, as if he had just played a winning card? She found Hadrian and Corvin in the study. They both looked up as she entered. Corvin with surprise, Hadrian with something darker. "You have visitors," she said flatly. "Lord Pemberton and Lady Seren Ashworth." The color drained from Hadrian's face. For one terrible moment, he looked like a man who had just received a death sentence. "Seren," he said, his voice rough. "She is here." "Who is she?" Maren demanded. "What is she to you?" But Hadrian was already moving, already brushing past her toward the entrance hall, his expression locked into something hard and desperate. Corvin caught her arm. "Maren, wait. Tell me," she said. "Tell me what I have walked into." Her brother's face was grim. Lady Seren Ashworth was promised to Hadrian when she was 17. Their fathers arranged it, a binding betrothal contract, signed and witnessed. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. He is betrothed to another woman. Was, or so we thought. Corvin's grip tightened. The contract was supposed to be dissolved when Hadrian's father died. But Pemberton has been searching for years, trying to find proof that it was never legally voided. If he has brought Lady Seren here, then he believes he has found it. Yes. Maren pulled free, her mind spinning. Why did no one tell me? Why did Hadrian not mention this when he announced our engagement? Because we did not think it mattered. The contract was supposed to be destroyed. Corvin's voice was heavy. "Maren, If Pemberton can prove the betrothal is still valid, then Hadrian's engagement to you is void. He will be legally bound to marry Lady Seren. And Pemberton gets what he wanted all along. Control of Blackmore through his cousin. Yes, she should have felt relieved. If the betrothal was valid, she was free. Free of the fiction, free of the pretense, free of the man who had spent 7 years making her feel invisible. But relief was not what she felt. What she felt was something far more dangerous. Something that twisted in her chest like a knife and made it suddenly, terribly difficult to breathe. "Excuse me," she said, and pushed past her brother toward the entrance hall, where Hadrian Vane was greeting the woman he had been promised to since before Marin ever knew his name. The drawing room felt like a battlefield. Marin sat rigidly on the settee, watching the careful dance of conversation unfold before her. Lady Seren had positioned herself near the fire, her pale beauty glowing in the warm light. Pemberton occupied the armchair opposite Hadrian, his satisfaction poorly concealed behind a mask of civility. And Hadrian himself sat like a man carved from stone, his responses clipped, his eyes revealing nothing. "You must understand our position," Pemberton was saying, his tone reasonable, almost sympathetic. "Lady Seren has waited nearly a decade for this matter to be resolved. She has refused other offers. She has remained faithful to the understanding between your families." "There is no understanding." Hadrian's voice was cold. "The contract was voided upon my father's death. Your solicitors confirmed it." "Ah, but that is where you are mistaken." Pemberton reached into his coat and produced a folded document. "It seems my solicitors have discovered an irregularity. The dissolution was never properly witnessed. The signatures are incomplete." He smiled, thin and satisfied. "The betrothal stands." Marin watched Hadrian's face, watched a muscle jump near his temple, the way his hands gripped the arms of his chair. "This is a forgery," he said, his voice dropping low. "I assure you it is not. The original contract, signed by your father and mine, with Lady Serene's name clearly stated as your intended bride." Pemberton set the document on the table between them. "You are welcome to have your own solicitors examine it, but I think you will find everything is in order." Lady Seren spoke for the first time, her voice soft as silk. "Hadrian, I know this is difficult. I know you have made other arrangements." Her pale eyes moved to Marin. "But surely you understand that honor demands we fulfill our father's wishes." "Honor?" Hadrian laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You speak to me of honor? I speak of duty, of obligation, of promises made before God and law." She rose, crossing to stand before him, close enough to touch. "I have waited for you. I have never stopped waiting. Is that not worth something?" Marin could not breathe, could not move. She was watching something intimate and terrible, a history she had no part in, a claim that predated her involvement by years. Hadrian looked up at Lady Seren, and something passed between them, something Marin could not read. "We will discuss this tomorrow," he said finally, "after I have consulted with my solicitors." "Of course." Lady Seren smiled, gentle and victorious. "Take all the time you need. I have waited this long. I can wait a little longer." Pemberton rose, satisfaction radiating from every pore. "We have taken rooms at the inn in the village. We shall return tomorrow afternoon for your answer." They left. The room fell into suffocating silence. Corvin was the first to speak. "Hadrian, tell me that document is a fake." "I do not know." Hadrian's voice was hollow. "My father's affairs were complicated. He made many promises he could not keep. I have spent 4 years trying to untangle them." "And Lady Seren? Was she one of those promises?" "Yes." Hadrian rose abruptly, moving to the window, his back to them. She was 17 when our fathers arranged the match. I was 22. I met her exactly 3 times before my father died. Did you care for her? Maren heard herself ask. He did not turn. I barely knew her. She was a stranger with my future written on her face. But the contract was supposed to be void. My father told me on his deathbed that he had dissolved it, that I was free. His hands clenched at his sides. It seems he lied, or Pemberton has fabricated evidence to the contrary. Either way, I am trapped. The word hung in the air. Trapped. The same word Maren had used to describe her own situation. What will you do? Corvin asked, his voice strained. I do not know. Hadrian finally turned, and his face was ravaged, stripped of all its careful composure. If the contract is valid, I have no choice. I must honor it. And Maren? Your sister's reputation will be protected. I will ensure the narrative favors her. A mutual decision to end the engagement. No scandal. No blame. He was already planning her dismissal, already calculating how to remove her from his life with minimal damage. Something cracked in Maren's chest. May I speak with His Grace alone? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Corvin looked between them, hesitated, and then nodded. I will be in my chambers if you need me. The door closed behind him. Maren and Hadrian stood on opposite sides of the room, a battlefield of Persian carpet and silence between them. You should be relieved, he said softly. This frees you. Does it? You never wanted this engagement. You acted out of kindness, out of some misguided sense of obligation to Corvin. Now you can return to your life. Find someone worthy of your fortune. Someone who actually deserves you. Someone who deserves me. She laughed, and it sounded wrong even to her own ears. You speak as if you know what I deserve. I know it is not this. He gestured vaguely at the room, at himself. Not a man drowning in his father's debts and his father's broken promises. Not a pretend engagement that was always destined to end in disaster. Is that what you think this is? A disaster? What else would you call it? She crossed the room before she could stop herself, stopping directly in front of him, close enough to see the shadows under his eyes, the lines of exhaustion carved into his face. Tell me the truth, she said, her voice dropping. Not what you think I want to hear. Not the polite deflection you give everyone else. The truth. His face tightened. Maren, you owe me that much. I spent everything I had to save you. I have played this fiction for over a week, watching you retreat behind your walls every time I get too close. I deserve to know what I am fighting for. You are not fighting for anything. This is not your battle. Then whose battle is it? Mine. The word came out ragged. It has always been mine. My father's failures, my father's debts, my father's broken promises. I have spent my entire adult life trying to repair the damage he left behind. And I am so tired, Maren. I am so goddamn tired of failing. She saw it then. The crack in the armor. The exhaustion that went deeper than sleepless nights, deeper than financial ruin. This was a man who had been carrying an impossible weight for years, alone, in silence, because he did not know how to ask for help. You are not failing, she said gently. I lost everything. Pemberton took it all. And the only reason I still have a roof over my head is because you, a woman I have treated abominably for 7 years, decided I was worth saving. His voice broke. I do not understand why you did it. I do not understand why you are still here. Because someone had to stay. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have. They stared at each other, the air between them charged with something neither could name. Lady Seren is beautiful, Maren said, her words barely audible. She is elegant and poised, and everything a duchess should be. She is a stranger. She has waited nearly 10 years for you. She has waited for a title, for a position, for the life my father promised her father. His eyes burned into hers. She doesn't know me. She doesn't see me. She sees the Duke of Blackmore, and that is all she has ever seen. And what do I see? The question hung between them, dangerous and raw. I don't know, he whispered. But when you look at me, I feel like I might actually exist. Like I am more than a title and a list of obligations and a legacy I never wanted. Marin's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Hadrian! Do not. He stepped back, breaking the spell. Do not say anything you will regret. Tomorrow, Pemberton will return with his proof. Tomorrow, I will likely discover that my entire future has been decided by men who died years ago. And you will be free. What if I do not want to be free? The words escaped before she could stop them. They hung in the air, naked and terrifying. Hadrian's face contorted with something that looked like pain. You do not mean that. Do I not? You cannot. You have spent 7 years hating me. I have spent 7 years trying to hate you. Her voice shook. It is not the same thing. He stared at her, and for one endless moment, she thought he might reach for her, thought he might close the distance between them and shatter every wall they had built. But then his expression shuddered, and he stepped back. "Good night, Miss Caldwell," he said, his voice rough. "We will speak again tomorrow." He left her standing alone in the drawing room, her heart in pieces, wondering if she had just made the worst mistake of her life, or the best. Sleep would not come. Marin lay in the enormous bed, staring at the canopy above her, replaying every word of their conversation. I have spent 7 years trying to hate you. Had she really said that? Had she really stood in front of Hadrian Vane and all but confessed that her anger had been a mask for something far more complicated? The clock on the mantel struck 2, then 3. The fire had burned to embers, and the room was growing cold, but she could not bring herself to move. A soft knock startled her upright. "Miss Caldwell?" Hadrian's voice, low and rough through the door. "Are you awake?" She should not answer, should pretend to be asleep, should maintain the careful distance that had kept them both safe for 7 years. Instead, she rose, wrapped a shawl around her nightgown, and opened the door. Hadrian stood in the corridor, still fully dressed, though his cravat was loosened and his hair disheveled. He looked like a man who had been fighting a war with himself and losing. "I could not sleep," he said. "I kept thinking about what you said." "Which part?" "All of it. Every word." His eyes searched her face in the dim candlelight. "May I come in?" This was madness. A single woman, a single man, an unlocked door and a bed, and the darkness pressing close around them. "Yes," she said. He entered slowly, as if expecting her to change her mind. The door clicked shut behind him, and suddenly the room felt very small, very intimate, and very dangerous. "I owe you an explanation," he said, "about Lady Seren, about all of it. You do not owe me anything. I owe you everything." He moved to the window, his back to her, his silhouette limned in moonlight. "My father was not a good man, Marin. He was charming and well-liked, and absolutely ruthless in pursuit of his own comfort. He spent money we did not have. He made promises he could not keep. And when the debts mounted, he began selling pieces of my future to pay for his present. Lady Seren. Lady Seren's father was wealthy, desperate for a titled connection for his daughter. My father saw an opportunity." His voice was bitter. "He sold me to the highest bidder when I was 22 years old. I had no say, no choice, no voice." "But you said the contract was voided." "That is what he told me. on his deathbed, drowning in laudanum, babbling about regrets and second chances. He said he had fixed it, said I was free. Hadrian laughed, hollow. He lied, or perhaps he believed his own fantasy. It does not matter now. It matters to me. He turned, and his expression was raw, unguarded in a way she had never seen. Why? Why does it matter to you? Because you matter to me. The truth spilled out before she could stop it. You have always mattered to me, even when I convinced myself I hated you, even when you looked through me like I was nothing, even now, when everything is falling apart. Her voice cracked. I do not know how to stop caring what happens to you. He crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands caught her face, tilting it up toward his, and she could see the storm in his eyes, the desperate war between wanting and should not. I have been cruel to you, he said roughly. For 7 years, I kept you at a distance, made you feel invisible, told myself it was because you were Corvin's sister, because you were too young, because I did not deserve to want anything for myself. And now? Now I cannot stop thinking about you, cannot stop seeing your face when I close my eyes, cannot stop wanting. He broke off, his face tight. I should leave. I should walk out that door and never look back. But you are still here. Yes. The word was torn from him. God help me. I am still here. She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders, the warmth of his skin beneath her touch. Then stay, she whispered. Maren, stop thinking. Stop calculating. Stop trying to protect me from yourself. She held his gaze, heart pounding. Just stay. Something shattered in his expression. The last wall, the final defense. He kissed her. It was not gentle, not careful. It was desperate and fierce, and tasted like years of denial finally breaking. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and she responded with equal hunger, fingers gripping his coat, pulling him down to her. They stumbled backward. The edge of the bed caught her knees, and she fell, pulling him with her. His body covered hers, warm and solid and real, and she could feel his heart hammering against her chest, could feel the tremor in his hands as they traced the curve of her waist. This changes nothing, he gasped against her mouth. Tomorrow, Pemberton will still come. The contract will still exist. I do not care about tomorrow. You should. I should have done a great many things differently. She pulled him back down. This is not one of them. They fell into each other like drowning people finding air. Clothes loosened. Barriers crumbled. The careful fiction they had built collapsed into something raw and real and undeniable. Afterward, she lay in his arms, listening to his heartbeat. Slow. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say that would not shatter this fragile, stolen moment. We cannot tell anyone, he said finally. I know. If Pemberton discovers what happened here, he will use it against us, against you. I know. Maren. His arms tightened around her. I'm sorry. For what? For not being able to give you more than this. For not being free to offer you what you deserve. She closed her eyes. Do not apologize for something neither of us can control. I want to control it. His voice was rough. I want to tell Pemberton to damn his contract. I want to court you properly, in daylight, in front of everyone. I want... She pressed her fingers to his lips. Do not tell me what you want if you cannot have it. It will only hurt more. Does it hurt? He asked, his words barely audible. This? Yes. Good. She pulled back to look at him. Good? If it hurts, that means it mattered. He kissed her forehead. Even if only for tonight. Tears burned behind her eyes. You are cruel. You know that. I know. He pulled her closer. Sleep. We will face tomorrow when it comes. But tomorrow came too soon. Maren woke to gray light filtering through the curtains and an empty bed. Hadrian was already gone, the sheets cold where he had lain beside her. She sat up slowly, her body aching in unfamiliar ways, her heart aching in ways she knew too well. It had happened. It had been real. And now, in the cold light of morning, she had to face the consequences. A folded note lay on the pillow beside her. She opened it with trembling hands. Maren, what happened last night was not a mistake. It was the truest thing I have done in years. But I cannot let you sacrifice your future for a man who may not be free to give you one. Pemberton arrives at noon. By then, I will have made my decision. Whatever happens, know that you saved more than my estate. You saved me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that. Yours, in every way that matters, H. Maren pressed the note to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Whatever happened next, everything had changed, and there was no going back. Maren dressed in a daze, her fingers clumsy on buttons and laces, her mind replaying Hadrian's note over and over. Yours, in every way that matters. What did that mean? What decision was he making? She found him in the breakfast room, seated at the head of the table, his face a careful mask. Corvin sat across from him, his expression troubled. They both looked up when she entered, and something passed between the men, some silent communication she could not decipher. "Good morning," Hadrian said, his voice perfectly neutral, as if nothing had happened, as if they had not spent the night tangled together, breathing each other's air, crossing every line they had drawn. "Good morning." She took her seat, accepted tea from a footman, and waited. The silence stretched, brittle and suffocating. "Pemberton will arrive at noon," Hadrian said finally. "I have consulted with my solicitors by express. They are examining the contract now, but their preliminary assessment is—" He paused, his face hardening. "Not favorable?" "What does that mean?" Maren asked, her voice low. "It means the document appears genuine. The signatures match my father's hand. The witnesses are legitimate." He set down his cup with careful precision. "It means the betrothal may indeed be legally binding." The words landed like stones in her chest. "There must be something," Corvin said. "Some irregularity, some loophole. My solicitors are searching, but we must prepare for the possibility that they will find nothing." Hadrian's eyes finally met Maren's, and what she saw there made her throat close. Resignation, despair, and underneath it all, a terrible, aching apology. "If the contract is valid, I will have no choice but to honor it." "No choice," Maren repeated slowly. "You keep saying that, as if you are a puppet and Pemberton holds the strings. I am bound by law, by honor, by promises my father made before I was old enough to understand what they meant. You are bound by fear." The words came out sharper than she intended. "You are afraid of what happens if you fight. Afraid of the scandal, the consequences, the uncertainty. I am afraid of destroying you." His voice cracked. "Do you not understand? If I refuse Pemberton, if I break this contract, he will retaliate. He will tell everyone what happened at that auction, what you did for me, what we—" He stopped, glancing at Corvin. "He will make certain your reputation is shattered beyond repair." "My reputation is my concern. It is my concern as well. I dragged you into this. I announced our engagement without your consent. Again he stopped, the words catching in his throat. "I cannot let you suffer from my father's mistakes. From my mistakes." Maren rose slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. "So that is your decision. You will marry Lady Seren. You will honor the contract, and I will return to my life as if none of this ever happened." It is the only way to protect you. I do not want your protection." Her voice shook. "I want you to fight for something you actually want, just once, instead of surrendering before the battle even begins." Hadrian's face contorted with something that looked like agony. "Marin!" "Do not." She held up her hand, tears burning behind her eyes. "Don't say my name like it means something to you. Not when you have already decided to let me go." She turned and walked out of the room, her spine rigid and her heart in ruins. Corvin found her an hour later, sitting on the stone bench in the wild garden, her cloak wrapped tight against the autumn chill. He sat beside her without speaking, and for a long moment they simply watched the wind move through the dead roses. "He loves you," Corvin said finally. "You know that, do you not? It doesn't matter. It matters more than anything. Not if he will not fight for it." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I have spent 7 years watching him from across crowded rooms, telling myself I despised him, convincing myself the ache in my chest was irritation rather than longing. And now, finally, I know the truth. I know he feels something too. But it changes nothing, because he would rather sacrifice his own happiness than risk disappointing a dead man. His father was—" Corvin hesitated. "Complicated. His father was a coward, and Hadrian is so afraid of becoming him that he has become something worse. A man who surrenders without even trying." Corvin took her hand, squeezing gently. "Give him time. This is not over yet." "Is it not? The solicitors are still searching. Pemberton may have made a mistake. There may yet be a way out." But Marin had seen Hadrian's face, had seen the resignation already settling into his bones. "He has already given up," she whispered. "I can see it in his eyes. He has decided that duty is more important than desire, that honor matters more than happiness." She laughed, bitter and broken. "And perhaps he is right. Perhaps I am a fool for believing love should conquer anything at all." "You are not a fool." Corvin pulled her into his arms, holding her as she wept. "You are the bravest person I know. And if Hadrian cannot see that, then he does not deserve you." "But I want him to deserve me," her voice cracked. "I want him to fight and fail and get back up and fight again. I want him to be the man I see beneath all that ice and duty. I want—" She could not finish, could not put into words the terrible, aching want that had lived inside her for 7 years, finally given shape, finally given voice, only to be crushed before it could bloom. Noon approached like an execution. Pemberton arrived precisely at 12, Lady Suren on his arm, both of them radiating triumph. They were shown into the drawing room, where Hadrian waited with his solicitor, a gray-haired man named Whitfield, whose expression suggested he had not found the salvation they sought. Marin stood near the window, refusing to sit, refusing to make herself small. If this was to be her ending, she would face it on her feet. "Well?" Pemberton settled into his chair with the satisfaction of a man who already knew the outcome. "What have your solicitors determined?" Whitfield cleared his throat. "The document appears genuine on its surface. The signatures match the late Duke's hand, and the witness names correspond to citizens recorded in the parish ledgers." "Then the matter is settled," Pemberton smiled. "The betrothal is valid. Lady Suren and His Grace will be married within the month." "There is one irregularity," Whitfield continued, and something shifted in Pemberton's expression. "The contract specifies that the marriage must occur before Lady Suren's 27th birthday. According to our records, that birthday is tomorrow." Silence crashed through the room. "Tomorrow?" Lady Suren's voice rose. "That cannot be correct. My birthday is in December. Everyone knows this." "Your public birthday, yes. But the parish records show you were actually born on the 3rd of October. Whitfield consulted his notes. "Which is tomorrow." This is absurd. Pemberton rose, his composure cracking. A technicality, a meaningless detail. A legally binding detail, Whitfield said calmly. If the marriage does not occur by midnight tomorrow, the contract becomes void. Marin's heart lurched. A way out. There was actually a way out, but Pemberton was already recovering, his mind visibly calculating. Then we will marry them tonight. A special license can be obtained. A clergyman can be found. The ceremony will be completed before midnight. That is not possible, Hadrian said, his voice dropping low. A special license requires 3 days' notice. Then we will find a clergyman willing to overlook the requirements. You would commit fraud to force this marriage? I would do whatever is necessary to see justice done. Pemberton's eyes glittered with something unhinged. Your father made a promise. He took money from my family. He gave his word that his son would marry my cousin. And then he died, leaving nothing but debts and broken pledges. His voice rose. You owe us this. You owe Lady Seren a future. I owe her nothing. Hadrian rose slowly, and there was something different in his bearing now, something harder. My father made that promise. My father took that money. I was a pawn in his schemes, just as Lady Seren was a pawn in yours. How dare you? I dare because I am done. Hadrian's voice cracked like thunder. I am done paying for my father's sins. I am done sacrificing my future to appease men who saw me only as a means to an end. I am done. Lady Seren stepped forward, her composure finally cracking. Hadrian, please. I have waited so long. I have refused other offers. I have. You have waited for a title. Not for me. His voice softened, almost gentle. I'm sorry, Lady Seren. Truly. You deserved better than to be used as a bargaining chip. But I cannot marry you. I do not love you. I never have. Love. Pemberton spat the word like a curse. Love is irrelevant. This is about honor, about obligation. No. Hadrian turned to face him fully. This is about control. You have wanted Blackmore since the day my father humiliated yours in a business dealing. This was never about Lady Seren, or honor, or promises. This was about revenge. Pemberton's face twisted with fury. You know nothing. I know everything. Hadrian reached into his coat and produced a sheaf of papers. I know you paid my steward to falsify the accounts. I know you orchestrated my financial ruin specifically to force this moment. I know you forged the witness signatures on that contract because the original witnesses died 15 years ago, and you hired imposters to take their place in the parish ledgers. He threw the papers onto the table. I have sworn statements, bank records, evidence of every crime you have committed in your quest to destroy me. The color drained from Pemberton's face. My solicitors spent all night investigating, Hadrian continued coldly. They traced the payments. They interviewed the supposed witnesses and discovered the deception. They found the original contract, the real one, in my father's private files. It was voided, properly and legally, 6 months before his death. This is fabrication. Lies. This is the truth. And if you do not leave this house within the hour, I will have you arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Pemberton stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. Lady Seren looked between them, her face pale with dawning horror. Aldrich, she whispered, you told me the contract was real. You told me. I told you what you needed to hear. Pemberton's voice was vicious. You were so desperate to be a duchess, you never questioned anything. Lady Seren recoiled as if struck. Get out, Hadrian said, his voice low and utterly cold. Both of you. Now. Pemberton gathered what remained of his dignity and stormed toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back, his face contorted with hatred. This is not over, he snarled. You may have won today, but I will find another way. I will destroy you, Blackmore. You and everyone you care about." His eyes found Marin, and his smile turned cruel. Especially her. The whole world will know what she did at that auction. What she is to you. By tomorrow, her reputation will be ash. He left. The door slammed behind him. Silence fell, heavy and ringing. Marin's legs gave out. She sank onto the nearest chair, her hands trembling, her mind spinning. It was over. The contract was void. Hadrian was free. But Pemberton's final threat hung in the air like poison. Tomorrow, her reputation will be ash. And she knew, with terrible certainty, that he meant every word. The next morning brought chaos. Marin woke to shouting from downstairs, to the sound of carriage wheels on gravel, to Betsy bursting into her room with wide, frightened eyes. "Miss Caldwell, you must come quickly. There are people at the gate, dozens of them, reporters and gentlemen, and—" The girl wrung her hands. "Lord Pemberton has made accusations. Terrible accusations. The whole village is talking." Marin dressed in a blur, her fingers numb, her heart pounding. When she descended to the entrance hall, she found Hadrian standing at the window, his face carved from stone, watching the crowd gathered beyond the gates. "How bad is it?" she asked, her voice low. "Bad enough." He did not turn. "Pemberton has told everyone that you purchased my debts as payment for services rendered. He claims you are my mistress, that our engagement was a sham to cover an illicit affair." The words hit like physical blows. And people believe him? People believe what is scandalous, what is salacious. Finally he turned, and his eyes were blazing with fury. "I am so sorry, Marin. I should have destroyed him when I had the chance. Should have. You could not have known he would do this." "I should have known. He told us exactly what he intended, and I let him walk out that door." Corvin emerged from the study, his face grim. "The newspapers have already printed the story. It will be in every London drawing room by evening." Marin felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. This was ruin. Complete and total ruin. Her family's reputation, her future, everything she had worked to protect. "I will fix this," Hadrian said, his voice rough with determination. "I will issue a statement. Deny everything. Make clear that Pemberton is a liar and a fraud." "It will not be enough." Marin's voice was hollow. "Once a scandal takes hold, denials only fuel it. People will believe what they want to believe." "Then what do you suggest?" She met his eyes, and something crystallized in her chest. A decision, a certainty. "Tell them the truth." "The truth? All of it." She stepped closer. "Tell them that I purchased your debts because I could not bear to watch you destroyed. Tell them that our engagement began as a fiction, but became real. Tell them," her voice shook, "tell them that you love me and that you are going to marry me, not because of scandal or obligation, but because you choose to." Hadrian stared at her, something breaking open in his expression. "Marin, you said you wanted to fight. You said you wanted to tell Pemberton to damn his contract and court me properly in daylight." She gripped his hands, her heart hammering. "Then fight. Not with denials and statements. Fight with the truth. Show everyone that what we have is real. They will not believe us. Then make them believe. Show them a man who would sacrifice everything for the woman he loves. Show them that honor is not about contracts and obligations. It is about standing beside someone when the world is trying to tear them apart." He was silent for a long moment, tension gathering in his shoulders, his eyes searching her face. "You are asking me to destroy my reputation," he said, his words hushed. "To admit publicly that I spent unchaperoned nights with an unmarried woman. To confirm everything Pemberton has implied." I am asking you to choose me." Her voice cracked. "Openly, irrevocably, in front of everyone who would judge us. And if it is not enough, if they shun us both, then we will be shunned together." She smiled through her tears. "I would rather be ruined with you than respectable without you." Something shifted in his expression. The walls that had kept him guarded for so long, that had held her at a distance for 7 years, finally crumbled. "I have loved you since the Ashworth ball," he said, his voice rough. 4 years ago. You wore a dress the color of autumn leaves, and you laughed at something your mother said, and I thought I had never seen anyone so alive." His hands tightened on hers. "I told myself it was impossible, that you were Corvin's sister, that you deserved better than a man drowning in his father's debts. I told myself so many lies, Marin. But the truth was always there, underneath everything." Tears streamed down her face. "Hadrian, I love you." The words came out fierce, desperate. "I love your stubborn courage and your impossible generosity. I love that you saw me when no one else did. I love that you saved me, not just from Pemberton, but from myself." He cupped her face in his hands. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you, if you will let me." She kissed him, soft and fierce, and trembling with everything they had finally allowed themselves to feel. When they broke apart, Corvin was watching them with something that looked like relief. "Well," he said dryly, "it is about time." Hadrian laughed, broken and joyful. "You are not going to threaten me? I have been waiting 4 years for you to stop being an idiot." Corvin clapped him on the shoulder. "Now go out there and make it right." Hadrian looked at Marin, his eyes bright with determination. "Together?" he asked. "Together," she said. They walked out to face the crowd. The gates of Blackmore were surrounded by carriages, reporters, and curious onlookers. Word had spread quickly, and it seemed half the county had come to witness the scandal firsthand. Hadrian stepped through the gates, Marin's hand firmly in his. The crowd fell silent, dozens of eyes fixed on them with avid curiosity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hadrian said, his voice carrying clearly across the morning air, "I understand there have been rumors, accusations, stories told by a man who sought to destroy me for his own petty vengeance." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Lord Pemberton has claimed that Miss Caldwell is my mistress, that our engagement is a sham, that she purchased my debts as payment for illicit favors." His mouth pressed into a line. "These accusations are lies, every one of them." "Then explain the auction," someone shouted. "Why would an unmarried woman spend her fortune on a bachelor's debts?" "Because she loved me." The words rang out clear and unflinching. "Because she has loved me for years, just as I have loved her. Because when she saw me about to lose everything, she could not stand by and watch." Gasps, whispers, shock rippling through the assembled crowd. "I did not deserve her intervention," Hadrian continued. "I had spent years treating her with coldness, keeping her at a distance, convincing myself that I was not allowed to want what I wanted." His voice roughened. "But Miss Caldwell is braver than I have ever been. She acted when I was too proud to ask for help. She saved me when I had given up on saving myself." He turned to face her, and his expression was raw with emotion. "Our engagement began as a fiction, a necessary lie to protect her reputation after her actions at the auction. But it did not remain a fiction." He lifted her hand to his lips. "I fell in love with her. Truly. Completely. Irrevocably." The crowd had gone utterly silent. "So, yes," Hadrian said, turning back to face them. "We spent unchaperoned time together. Yes, there were improprieties. And yes, the world has every right to judge us for it." His chin lifted. "But I will not apologize for loving her. I will not pretend that what we have is shameful, and I will not let a vindictive man's lies destroy the only thing that has ever truly mattered to me." He dropped to one knee. Marin's heart stopped. "Marin Caldwell," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the crowd. "You have shown me what courage looks like, what love looks like, what it means to choose someone even when the world is against you." He produced a ring from his pocket, a simple gold band with a single sapphire. "I am asking you, here, in front of everyone, to marry me. Not because of scandal or obligation, but because I love you, and because I want to spend the rest of my life fighting for you, beside you, with you." Tears streamed down her face. "You impossible man," she whispered. "Is that a yes?" "It is a yes." She pulled him to his feet and kissed him, right there in front of the reporters and the neighbors and the entire scandalized county. The crowd erupted, some in outrage, some in cheers, some in delighted shock. But Marin heard none of it. All she heard was Hadrian's heart beating against hers, steady and sure. When they finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "No more walls," he said, his words soft. "No more running. I choose you. Today. Tomorrow. Every day until I die. And I choose you." She smiled through her tears. "Even when you are being impossible. Especially then? Especially then." They walked back through the gates together, hand in hand, leaving the chaos behind them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The weeks that followed were brutal. Society did not forgive easily. The newspapers printed story after story, some sympathetic, most salacious. Invitations dried up. Old friends stopped calling. Marin's mother wept daily, convinced her daughter had destroyed the family's reputation beyond repair. But Marin and Hadrian stood firm. They married quietly, 3 weeks after his public proposal. Just family, a handful of true friends, and a vicar who had known Hadrian since childhood. There were no grand celebrations, no elaborate parties. Just two people choosing each other, despite everything. The morning after their wedding, Marin woke to find Hadrian already dressed, standing at the window with a newspaper crumpled in his fist. Another vicious article. Another attack. She rose without speaking and slipped her hand into his. He looked down at their intertwined fingers, then at her face, and something in his expression softened. "Together," she said simply. He nodded, releasing the newspaper, letting it fall forgotten to the floor. "Together." Corvin stood as best man at the ceremony, his face split in a grin that suggested he had been waiting years for this moment. "If you make her cry," he whispered to Hadrian at the altar, "I will make you regret it." "I know," Hadrian said solemnly. "She would never forgive you if you did not." The first months of marriage were a careful navigation. Some families eventually warmed to them, swayed by Hadrian's unwavering devotion and Marin's steady dignity. The Duke's reputation, once tarnished, began slowly to recover as the truth about Pemberton's schemes became widely known. Pemberton himself had fled to the continent, one step ahead of the authorities. Lady Suren, humiliated and betrayed, had retreated to her family's country estate, where she eventually accepted a proposal from a kind widower who valued her for more than her connections. By spring, the worst of the scandal had faded. The Tun had found new dramas to occupy their attention, and Marin had begun to feel something she had not expected to feel again. They were walking in the garden one evening, the one that had been wild and overgrown when she first arrived. Hadrian had hired gardeners to restore it, and now the roses were blooming again, a riot of color against the ancient stone walls. "I received a letter from Lady Ashworth today," Marin said carefully. Hadrian stiffened. "Suren." She apologized. For everything. She said she was so desperate to escape her family's expectations that she allowed herself to be manipulated. Maren glanced at him. She asked if we might ever forgive her. Can you? Maren considered. I think so. She was a pawn, just as you said. Pemberton used her loneliness against her. And me? Can you forgive me? His voice was low. For all those years I kept you at a distance? For making you feel invisible? She stopped walking and turned to face him. I forgave you the moment you knelt in front of that crowd and told the world you loved me. That was the easy part. He took her hands. The hard part is every day. After. Proving that I deserve what you gave me. You are proving it, she smiled. Every time you argue with me about crop rotation. Every time you bring me tea when I am too absorbed in my books to remember to eat. Every time you look at me like I am the most important person in the world. You are the most important person in my world. I know. She kissed him gently. That is how I know you deserve me. They walked on through the garden, hand in hand, and for the first time in her life, Maren felt truly, completely home. 2 years later, Maren stood in the entrance hall of Blackmore, watching snow fall gently outside the tall windows. The house was warm with firelight, and the smell of pine boughs, and the sound of laughter drifted from the drawing room where their families had gathered for Christmas. Wool gathering again. She turned to find Hadrian approaching, a cup of mulled wine in each hand. He offered her one, then moved to stand beside her at the window. Remembering, she said, the auction, the carriage ride, the first time I stood in this hall, wondering what I had gotten myself into. And now? Now I know exactly what I got myself into. She leaned into him. The best decision I ever made. He laughed, low and warm. Even better than spending your entire fortune on a stranger's debts. You were never a stranger. She looked up at him, her heart full. You were the man I had been waiting for. I just did not know it yet. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, soft and lingering. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his coat. An early Christmas gift. He produced a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold locket, and when she opened it, she found a miniature portrait of herself on one side and of him on the other. I had it commissioned months ago, he said, his voice dropping, so that no matter where we are, no matter what happens, we carry each other with us. Tears pricked her eyes. You impossible romantic man. You made me this way. He clasped the locket around her neck. You taught me that love is not a weakness, that choosing someone, fighting for someone, is the bravest thing a person can do. I taught you that every day, every moment, just by being you. From the drawing room, Corvin's voice rang out, calling them to join the festivities. Their daughter, just 6 months old, had apparently done something adorable that required immediate parental attention. Maren smiled, wiping her eyes. We should go. In a moment. Hadrian caught her hand, pulling her back. I just want 1 more minute here. With you. Remembering how far we have come. She leaned into him, watching the snow fall, feeling his heartbeat steady against her back. At the auction, she said softly, when you stood up and told everyone I was yours, I was furious. I thought you were just trying to control the situation, to manage me like another one of your obligations. And now? Now, I understand. She turned in his arms to face him. You were not claiming me as property. You were claiming me as your choice, the one thing in your life you actually wanted. The only thing I ever wanted. His eyes were bright. From the moment I saw you, I just did not know how to say it. You know now. I do. He kissed her, slow and deep. I love you, Maren Vane. Today. Tomorrow. every day until I die. And I love you, she smiled against his lips, even when you're being impossible. Especially then? Especially then. They walked together toward the drawing room, toward their families, toward the life they had built from scandal and sacrifice and stubborn, impossible love. Some choices, Marin had learned, were worth everything, and Hadrian Vane had been worth every single penny.